Well, look at you, sir. Pedro Pascal.
No, look at you.
Look at you,
Clayton
man.
Davis.
Listen, I'm very happy to be with you today.
I'm happy to be here.
I'm very happy for this Pedro movement.
Somebody stop me.
It's infectious. Everyone loves you. You're having, I won't say a great year, great decade. I don't know how you describe it yourself. How are you describing this time period?
I can view it in really, really practical terms, in terms of what happened after I got Game of Thrones, which was what felt like a really lucky circumstance, and the break that felt like it changed things as far as previous work that were big breaks to me, because it meant being able to pay rent and continue. You know what I mean?
Paying bills is important.
Yeah, super important. And so, this 7-episode arc on the 4th season of Game of Thrones that David Benioff and Dan Weiss were willing to take a chance on, as far as an actor who was unknown by comparison, it hasn't been the same for me since. So it really is that role, that job. No shit.
And then HBO said, we're going to keep you in the family, right?
Yeah.
For a little bit.
Yeah.
The Last of Us.
Yeah. Jumping ahead.
I'm gonna jump ahead because listen, we have so much to talk about. You are sitting with the awards editor at Variety, and I am calling you an Emmy contender. And my opinion is all that matters in this landscape of television awards. I just want you to know that.
Oh, that's why I'm here.
That's why you're here. Were you ever reluctant to take Last of Us? Because some of us still have PTSD from The Walking Dead, and that not going as well as we had hoped it would go.
You mean from the start of The Walking Dead, and how impressive
the zombie standpoint? There's an oversaturation of zombie stuff right now.
Can we just talk for a second about where it feels like it started and was reinvigorated?
Yes.
What's your opinion? Which movie do you think kind of reignited the zombie genre? This is a test.
I know. It was definitely pre-World War Z. But Dawn of the Dead, I guess. Go ahead. What would you call
28 Days Later? 28 Days Later. Even though it's a rage virus, but still was sort of like the conversation about zombies. And I don't know how much of a hit that movie was, but I saw it. It's a
masterpiece also.
It's also a masterpiece.
Yeah.
I saw it in the movie theater, and I had that kind of experience as a grown adult, where something gets kind of into the fabric of your skin, and I had nightmares, but they were kind of adventure nightmares, and I remember that thrill-seeking experience, like being on a ride, but also pretty sophisticated material. I'm going to turn this entire podcast into talking about 28 Days Later.
It's good. It's our spinoff. Go ahead.
But anyway, I recognize I've loved keeping track of everything that happened after 28 Days Later, because then I was really surprised by Dawn of the Dead. I thought it was really good and had one of the best openings of a horror movie I'd seen in a really long time. Anticipated very much the start of The Walking Dead, and I guess I really liked the genre, and also felt the oversaturation. So much so that I kind of started forgetting about the genre a little bit, and then the Last of Us came along, which inserted itself very spontaneously into my life, where I thought that I would be doing something else for the next couple of years. Within that, there was just like a small window of opportunity where I got a phone call and was asked to look at these scripts by Craig Mazin. And I was like, the guy who wrote Chernobyl? And they said yes. And if it hadn't been Craig, I think I wouldn't have looked at them, not to say, I just didn't feel like psychologically reconstructing the future or taking the shine off of what I was planning to do anyway. Do you know what I mean? And I was really kind of reluctant from changing the energy up in terms of what I was already planning on doing, but it was Craig Mazin, because I hadn't heard of The Last of Us. I didn't know about the game, and because I'm old.
No, I mean, just because you're not a gamer, right? I'm like, my game days are kind of behind me. Now it's just FIFA.
I think that no, I guess I'm not a gamer in that I don't have the skill with the console. What are they called?
Game controllers.
Game controllers.
So you can't play Mortal Kombat or anything like that.
I was good at like Super Mario Brothers, late '80s, Punch Out, that stuff.
You're touching my heart right
and
now.
even earlier, like we didn't even have Atari. We had ColecoVision, which I think was like the D version of Atari, and it was Mousetrap and Frogger, all that stuff, and arcades in the cinemas, you know. And so a big gamer in that regard, from like the original, you know, Tron and stuff like that, but not the more sophisticated, you need to be talented and you need to have actual, you know, skill. Back to when I got a call and was asked to look at these scripts, and if I liked them, the writer, Craig Mazin, would like to jump on a Zoom with you. And so after reading, they sent me the first 3 scripts, and I think that as it was expressed in the pilot that was aired, it starts in a very kind of intimate way, and it gradually forces you into a very world-building story, but it is so smartly through the perspective of the character Sarah, played by Nico Parker, and that was immediately engaging to me just as a reader. Like it entertained me right away, and that's always like a good sign, because if the part is good, but the whole thing is like if the part is attractive, let's say, because if it isn't good, then the part can't really be good, but it can still be attractive, lead type of character. I find that it works better for my brain if I like it as a reader or as an audience member, you know, and I find it like, oh, I want to see this, you know what I mean? And so I noticed that right away, and met with Craig, and hadn't even had the chance to finish the first 3 episodes yet, and then talked with Craig and had an instant chemistry with him, and then kind of felt the draw of working with somebody that I was going to get along with really well. And I know how to get along with everybody, you know what I mean? But it doesn't mean I like everybody.
Yeah. Okay. No, we're all going to wonder. But all right.
No.
I got it.
Not, you know, professional, like, you know,
you can make it
at the grocery store, at a job, you know what I mean? Or it isn't, you know what, that like is too provocative, like or not like is too provocative way of put it. It doesn't mean that I feel comfortable or myself with everybody. Do you know what I mean?
Not like right now, where you're just coming alive.
I like you very much.
Yeah, I like you too.
I have no problem admitting that.
I actually have a follow-up question about it, because one thing that I love so much about you and Joel, the character, is one of my big things I write about here is diversity in film, television. I want to see it. I'm a Latino black man in journalism. Not very many of us are here. Yeah. You are the goal that I want to see, because when we talk about diversity, we all seem to be talking about different things. You're Latino in a leading role, but Joel doesn't have to be Latino. Joel could be anybody. And that's where I get really excited. It's like you're there, you're representing, you're doing some great things, and you can just be. You don't have to be like overly Latino. You can just be Pedro Pascal playing Joel. And when that and how that translates to the Emmy race, and you may not be aware of this, 75 years of Emmy history, one Latino has been nominated for lead actor drama.
It's Jimmy Smits.
Jimmy Smits.
He didn't win?
He didn't win for NYPD Blue. Not in lead, not during that time.
I guess started on NYPD Blue.
No, you did. Did you really?
Oh, hell yeah, I did.
When?
That would have been 1990. It would have aired. I shot it in 2000.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, life comes full circle now. So I feel like I'm looking at potentially number 2 and 3 that's out there, like Diego Luna's and Andor. Like I don't have to just like put all my eggs in one basket. There's a lot of baskets here. Do you feel
that is crazy? Do
you feel that wave coming that you can just be Pedro Pascal, an actor, versus Pedro Pascal, like the Latino guy that we have for Latino roles? And we love you like on Narcos and everything like that. But do you feel that change right now?
I think that the change is really important, and that the best way to continue representation is exactly as you put it, just casting a person into a role that isn't limited to opening the not limiting to a character to its racial identity. Especially if it's an IP that we're familiar with or a book, and people get so butthurt about this kind of stuff. Sure. But who cares? Because that is the coolest way of like moving the needle, is being open about the casting in every way. I remember looking at a script and thinking, God, wouldn't it be so? And there was this real sort of scary parental figure, and it was written as a father in it, and then I thought, God, wouldn't it be interesting if it was a mother, like if it was Diane Weiss instead of and sort of treating the approach with some originality, and let that originality be inclusive.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you
instead of being like these are the instructions, this is how we need to follow it, this is the way, this is let's label what representation is and follow those. No, that I think that we need to continue discovering it, and making sure that we understand that representation is in service of telling the story, instead of fulfilling a political frustration, which is totally legit also. It's very funny. It's a very interesting thing, I think, to navigate, and I think that it deserves all the attention in the world so that we do navigate it, and that the needle does move, and that things do kind of like change. And
it's awesome. Glad to hear that. Thank you, Pedro.
You're welcome.
So I need to ask about season 2 of Last of Us that right now is not happening because time of recording, we are in the middle of a writer's strike.
Yeah.
And I know you're not a gamer, but I'm sure you're hyper aware of what happens in Last of Us 2, the video game, to Joel. This isn't a spoiler alert because video games, I think, are a different animal. But we lose Joel, and we lose him. He is killed.
What?
Horribly killed in game 2.
What are you?
Yeah, I know. And it also time jumps also in the future. Do you because it's such a catalyst for what happens. And the show has really semi-closely followed that. Do you know if we're going to explore that 5-year gap, or are we going to go right into Last of Us video game part 2 mode? I need to prepare myself if I'm going to lose you very early on in Last of Us Season 2. That's what I'm asking.
I'll always be with you.
Yes.
No one has ever gone. I'm misquoting...
Star Wars.
No, I'm misquoting Toni Morrison, which is terrible.
Yeah. It's fine. There's a version of that everywhere.
No one has ever lost, or anyway. I actually don't know. And here's the thing: I think that if you think about the kind of construct of a show, especially as it begins, and not knowing whether or not it'll do well or great or not, they marry themselves very much to the adaptation of the first game, for example. And I remember back to Narcos, for example, people feeling frustrated that they lose Pablo Escobar as soon as they did, but they already had an outline with the first 2 seasons, and they ended the first season with Pablo Escobar's escape from prison, not knowing that the world would fall madly in love with Wagner Moura. Not necessarily with Pablo Escobar, but with Wagner Moura and his performance.
Yeah.
But then they only had a certain amount of months left of the character's life from where they ended the first season. If they had known, so who knows in terms of if they could guarantee the success of the show, if they would have teased out the first season more, but I think that would be a mistake because ultimately they are in service of an IP that works really well and are finding very unexpected ways to expand on it. And that being said, I think that part 2 has more leeway. I think it seemed to me, as far as the people that I talked to, that it's a different immersive experience. And while there are things that have to happen for the central narrative to occur, it seems like it's a little bit more open. So that means I don't fucking know.
You're
a
really good liar.
How they're going to do it.
Yeah. Will you be?
No,
bummed?
I think I should know.
Would you be bummed?
And they haven't.
Would you be bummed if you died early on in season 2?
Not if it's good.
Okay.
You know?
Do you know how the character dies
I love
in the video game?
good television. Move on.
Okay, fine. All right. I'm gonna.
Jeez Louise.
I just wanted you to answer.
Maybe they're gonna do it. Maybe they're not gonna do it.
Okay.
You haven't seen the world, so you don't know. You keep going for family.
Let's go to Mandalorian. The helmet. The man under the helmet. It really did explore some new territory this year, and Star Wars continues to be a very interesting world-building experience. I spoke about it recently that your co-star will be campaigning lead actress this year for the show because the show really centered around her character.
Around Katie.
Right. Yeah, I just said her name, right? Yeah. You know her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. What was it like this season? Because it really put a focus on her, and I guess where we can go from here.
I think it was great in that it also comes into a full realization of a beloved character that is from the world of Dave Filoni and Bo-Katan, because Din Djarin is a creation that starts with combining the worlds of Star Wars, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni, and introducing this character through the live-action show, The Mandalorian, and then creating the opportunities of pulling references and live-action characters from his Dave Filoni's beloved animated series. And so, sure, everyone gets to kind of experience the excitement of the character being introduced. And she's a badass, and it's perfect casting. And I am a big Battlestar Galactica fanboy.
Really?
Yeah, big time. I own the DVDs.
I'm happy you own physical media. Physical media forever.
Right?
Forever. Thank you.
I still can't think of anything that has a better intro than Battlestar Galactica every episode.
Yeah.
Just the thrill of the drum beat and showing you what was going to happen in the episode, but still throwing your scent off of what was going to happen in the episode. And so I remember Dave talking to me about the possibility of casting the voice actor of Bo-Katan in the live action role. And I was like, Katie Sackhoff, you have to do it. And so anyway, I just think it was perfect that we get to meet and see the character, and she gets to do cool shit in the second season, and then take center stage in the third. And it's what I would want for the character, and as a fan of the Clone Wars.
Your cult fractured our people. Where were you then?
This year, the fans were denied your face. This season have definitely a more vocal voice performance more than anything else. Does that operate differently for you versus like any other time during the seasons, previous seasons?
It's been such an interesting experiment throughout, in that there was limited time for me on set in the first season, and kind of a collaborative process of creating and establishing a physical presence that was like based on what they needed for the character, what the costume, what the silhouette is, what Brendan Wayne can do, what Lateef Crowder can do, and what was important to John and Dave and me as far as a physical language was concerned. And then stepping into it for the majority of season 2, because I wanted to. And I wanted to sort of see how far little could go. Mm-hmm. And it was really cool, but but very hard, and very physically demanding in a way that, number one, the show needs to get shot. Mm-hmm. And there are so many departments and elements that go into creating the visual experience of that show. Yeah. And so many bodies, and it didn't seem, true to be concerned with Din Djarin's face and being really economical if it was going to get done, than for it to have the most amount of impact. Yeah. There was actually a version of an episode in season 2 where he takes his helmet off in the beginning of the episode and is in a different kind of a costume. And we had a conversation, and and I was like, I think we should hold it. And they're like, are you crazy? And I was like, no, I really think that it should come when the stakes feel the highest, And look, I'm not the outlier of the universe who doesn't care about, my face but it didn't. I would much rather the show work than betray it to any kind of human need to be scene, because the show was presented to me as The Mandalorian and all of its like visual identity. At that point, there was so much experience for everyone involved in terms of authoring this character that that it was able to become mostly a voiceover gig for season 3, for the most part, and always maintain what the initial experience was, which is very, very surgical post work, in terms of the writing, the dialogue, the tone, even stuff I was on set for, being able to kind of like review that again, hear how it sounds. It's unbelievable how well they pick up.
Yeah.
There's a mic pack, like, you know,
In your
packed
head.
into the helmet, and being able to again re-author, be like, let me make this sound a little more intense, and in such a surgical, tiny way. And so yeah, it's harder work than you think, and more fun than you would expect as well. I can get a little granular, you know. My brain can get a little, and so it's been a great opportunity. And Jon Favreau has always like really been so collaborative, especially in that process of it.
But just quick shout out to Disney and Star Wars peeps, because you're this season, I don't know, again, inside baseball, regular people may not see, Crowder and Brendan are credited in the opening credits. Like that is, we fight for stunt people to get their recognition all the time, and it's good to see their names on there. Awesome. I know we have I don't want to keep you all day, even I do want to keep you all day. Strange Way of Life.
Yeah.
Because you are a film guy as well. And my philosophy is you are only a great actor if you have a good Oscar snub under your belt. And you do, because I believe you should have been nominated for The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent last year. You can read the article where I say, where is Pedro's nomination?
Oh, man.
And now you're going to team up with my other favorite guy, Ethan Hawke.
Yep.
And you know, this up-and-coming director, also named Pedro.
Right.
Talk about Strange Way of Life and filming that with Pedro. That's a short and really should be a feature film that's 3 hours long.
Oh, man.
Yeah, there you go.
Has Pedro ever made a 3-hour movie? He wouldn't dare.
I don't think so. No, because he respects my time.
Exactly. And people's lower back issues. You know, I saw Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown in the movie theater, Balboa Peninsula, Orange County, California, with my whole family. And it really was the kind of thing that changes your DNA. Exactly. When you see that level of color, that kind of comedy, that kind of sexual atmosphere of every kind, with every facet of dangerous, functional, tragic, you know, a kind of circus of energy, and also homaging all of very specific classic cinema and theater. And I seemed to, at a very young age, be able to absorb all of that. And thereafter, Pedro, being a favorite of my family's, didn't miss anything that he made after that. And so it was a dream to meet him, number one. He actually reached out to me, and when I was doing King Lear, I was playing Edmund in a Broadway production of King Lear that Glenda Jackson was the king, and he had reached out and was very curious about the production and wanted to come and see it. And he was like, "How long is it?" I said, "It's 3 hours and 45 minutes." And he was like, "Ay, Pedro." Ay, Pedro. And I was like, "No te preocupes, por favor," you know. He's like, "Maybe we meet for coffee instead." And was kind enough, and had nothing in mind for me at all.
Really?
Simply just people in common, and was aware about how vocal I was in terms of my admiration for him. So very, very generously reached out, got together for some coffee and just chatted away and established a connection and a relationship. And then a couple of years later, he reached out. I hadn't even seen Pain and Glory when I sat down with him the first time. I don't think it had come out yet.
Do you even know that Antonio Banderas was about to get an Oscar nomination? You weren't aware. Look at that.
For me, that was the performance of the year. It was,
Great.
there were incredible performances all around that year, but I wasn't surprised by what Antonio Banderas did, but I was still floored because he's always turned it out and everything. But it was still kind of something so moving in that he seemed to come up with an interpretation that was not, what do you call it? Mimicking is too patronizing of a word, but basically, playing Pedro, but it was almost like playing Pedro's soul in a way. And a person that he has known personally and professionally for so many decades. I just haven't seen anything like that. I haven't seen that kind of authorship in a performance where there are so many layers of doing it. You can study a person physically, but it wasn't that. It was more like, I understand you and am going to do that. But anyway, I remember that just moved me so much. But then a couple of years after I sat down with Pedro in New York, he called me on Christmas Eve and said that he had a short film that he wanted to do with me. And I said, "Merry Christmas." And he was like, "Yeah, no, is it Christmas? I don't do holidays." And I was like, "I'm with you. I'm home alone, like hiding from the world."
Oh no! Can you come to my house for Christmas?
Yeah,
take this
absolutely.
opportunity. You can come to my wife is the best cook I know.
There was another wave. There was another Los Angeles wave. This was a Christmas
21 probably
21 into 22.
Yeah.
Remember?
When
we had another wave during the holidays.
Yeah, it was like right before BAFTA and everyone got like COVID.
Yeah,
then,
exactly. And then, the conversation started there, and I was shooting The Last of Us at the time, and I think that it's fascinating to see him get his feet wet with English language, because it's there are cultural identities that can sort of marry themselves a little bit more with identities outside of their culture, if that makes any sense. And Spain, I would not say, is one of them. It's a very, very firm identity as far as cinema is concerned, and so it's so beautiful to see Pedro as the artist that he is, to kind of be like, I'm not gonna. God knows how many offers from Hollywood he turned down after Women on the Verge or Law of Desire or any of the things that started to emerge in his sort of career of the 80s.
I suppose you talked to her like when he won the Oscar for that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
honestly, I can't even imagine the amount of times he was asked to kind of come in and do a feature, all of which he said no to. And to meet somebody who is uncompromising in terms of what their process is, because it isn't a standard, but it's just being true to themselves. I can't understand it in any other way. And for him to sort of use the short film experience with Tilda Swinton and then move into this experience with Ethan and I, and Ethan
Talented guy.
I saw The Explorers in the movie theater. Does anyone even know what that is?
I've heard of The Explorers. I don't think I've ever
It's
seen
like the
it,
realm
though.
of like in the same wave of like the Goonies, you know?
Yeah. My favorite movie of all time is Dead Poet Society.
I saw Dead Poet Society in the movie theater.
Yep.
And then I went to, I started college and saw Reality Bites. And then he published a book. And then I saw him off Broadway and then on Broadway. And then I saw him direct a play. And the Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, Before Midnight being my favorite movies are, again, another sort of authorship and rebellious kind of career, refusing to limit it to any one thing.
Also, shout out, he may win an Emmy this year, too, for directing The Last Movie Stars, his documentary, which
I got
pristine.
to watch while we were shooting the movie together. Yeah. So it was this highly magical experience in 117-degree temperature in southern Spain, in beautiful layered Saint Laurent costumes, but still with two legends kind of sandwiched between them and serving as sort of a language interpreter as well. Pedro speaks great English, as much as he says that he doesn't.
Yeah. He plays it up.
He gets by just fine with the English, and so it was. I couldn't have written it myself, as far as the experience was concerned, and also the feeling that it was to be listened to, and to be, and for them to want to, you know what I mean, to be a colleague of these people.
A woman was found killed in town.
You're doing this film called Too Gladiator, Too Furious, right? That's what it's called? That's the working title?
I call it Gladiator 2 Electric Boogaloo.
I with Paul Mescal, which he's also a troublemaker, too good looking for his own good.
Is he a troublemaker?
He's just like, he's
Well,
like you. Just
let's take care of that.
Yeah, we'll you talk to him on set for me and tell him that you have to, bring him, sit higher than him.
Cut the shit, Paul Mescal.
Yeah. When it got announced that you were in Gladiator 2, it said an unknown role, but Clayton Davis loves Joaquin Phoenix.
Uh-huh.
And I see similarities in things between Pedro and Joaquin. And I was wondering, not that you would answer this anyway, if you were willing to share what role you would be playing in the film, because I have a theory.
You're just lubing me up.
I'm asking what the people are
telling
wondering.
me that I remind him of Joaquin Phoenix so that I can literally get fired by Paramount by telling him, I'll be like, what? You think I'm like Joaquin Phoenix? Let me tell you everything. Here are the keys to my house.
Well, we already said I invited you over to spend Christmas, and we can extend it. I have an extra room for you. But how excited are you to do that, and what are you willing to tell us about the picture?
I haven't been put under any instruction, but you know how scared we get in terms of misstepping on all this stuff. It's such a scary landscape to kind of navigate. Yeah. I used to, it's never caught up to me, but boy, not with a microphone in front of me or anything like that, but I definitely talk to an Uber driver about everything.
Spend all your Uber drivers. we can piece it together.
I remember being in an Uber in London before starting to shoot Wonder Woman, and a very conversational Uber driver asking me what I was doing in London, and me telling him, and then gradually starting to explain the entire plot of Wonder Woman 1984. And realizing maybe I shouldn't do that. But anyway, that being said, I think that I can only say that as we were talking about Almodovar, the idea of being on a set, but one of Ridley Scott's sets, 3 of his movies being in my top 10, and this is coming from a movie nerd.
I have to ask you which 3.
I have to ask you to guess.
Thelma and Louise,
Yes.
Black Hawk Down.
No.
No. Gladiator.
I love it. I love it. I love Gladiator. I mean, I really love the
Blade
movie.
Runner. You're a Blade Runner
Blade
guy
Runner.
for sure.
Blade Runner. Dude.
And
Blade
Aliens.
Runner. Yes.
There you go.
Well, take the plural out of it.
Oh, Alien.
Alien.
Okay.
He didn't direct Aliens.
Oh yeah.
Clayton.
I'm sorry. I knew this. I misspoke.
Don't
My
let
bad.
me down. Don't
My
let
bad.
me down.
My bad. Yes. So Alien, Blade Runner, and Thelma and Louise.
Yeah. That being said, I would kind of play anything.
Okay. So long story short, no, you're not telling us, but you're excited to work with Ridley Scott on this role that may or may not be just like Commodus.
And Denzel Washington and Paul Mescal and you know, that is again stepping into or continuing to step into territory that feels like really exciting is such a pedestrian way of putting it, but I don't know if I'll ever be able to kind of shed the identity of someone who was under the influence of these people for as long as I was, specific to the, you know, late 70s, 80s, early 90s, in terms of my brain being a sponge and wanting to be on the screen or on the stage. And so it's kind of it is a little bit of an awkward experience sometimes because, yeah, I'm invited to the table and I have a seat at the table and I deserve to be here, but you know the other part of me is like glitching out on
Imposter syndrome a little bit.
Imposter syndrome related and just sort of like under the blanket of like admiration, you know, and I think that that's something worth coming into full acceptance of, because I wouldn't be here if it weren't for those influences. And therefore, if that takes precedence over, or if that takes up the space of like where I'm supposed to feel entitled to be there, then fine, you know?
I get it. And last question, we have to call you out on something, because in October 2020, you were on the cover of Variety.
Yes.
And a wonderful story written by my colleague, Adam Berry.
Yes.
And in said story, you said you were offered Wonder Woman 1984, and you said that will never happen again. Fast forward to May 2023. You lied to Adam Berry and the rest of us because you have been offered many roles not in
the same way.
In the streamlined sense of you're riding a wave of star power, admiration. What you say, Denzel, Paul Mescal, Ridley Scott, you know, Ethan Hawke, Pedro meant to you. You're meaning a lot to a lot of other people. I don't know if you've taken that part in quite yet.
All right, I'm not going to argue with you.
But what does it feel like to have that statement be wrong? Have you be so wrong in October 2020?
I think, you know, there's something in me that is, I think I could have been a good trial lawyer, because all I want to do is argue your point. And be like, technically, I'm not wrong, because what I meant was the way I was offered Wonder Woman is still sort of hasn't happened, in that it just seemed like at the time. It seemed like at the time I didn't, like a gift, like a real just here you go, which seemed crazy to me.
Well, word semantic it. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
But I want to be able to fulfill the assignment, you know, and continue fulfilling the assignment because that is the the best part. It's not about necessarily getting an A, but it's definitely an anchoring thing in terms of understanding someone's vision, especially if it's somebody that whose influence you've been under for so long, and also fulfilling the role of like scene partner for somebody who is super impressive, and if it comes with actually inspiring somebody else, that maybe that's the component that I'm kind of like unwilling to recognize, because it can make my
I see the body language. I feel like you can't even.
it can just kind of make my heart explode a little
Yeah.
bit, because I suppose that like to think, you know, because I needed all of this, you know, not this work, but I needed it growing up. I needed the movies, and I needed these directors, and I needed these performances. And I grew up very lucky and very privileged, but my heart and my imagination, you know, it wasn't simply an interest, it was an identity, and I needed it. Therefore, to even entertain a little bit that I could mean that, that I could mean that to somebody, that is very, like, it borders on like being emotionally a little over it's very moving, and I should, yeah.
But congratulations anyway. So we're going to wrap up our time here, but what I want you to say, because now we have a plan, is to look into the camera and tell Mrs. Davis what your menu, your dream menu for Christmas is. What do you, if you can build Christmas Day, this meal.
I want to play to people's strengths. Where's Mrs. Davis from?
I mean, she's Cuban and Puerto Rican.
I'll take that. Mrs. Davis, I'll take some home cooked. Take me to the islands.
Ooh. You're okay with arabo and arroz con gandule?
Pero claro que sí.
There you go.